to Incredibly Ordinary.
I have a little bit of a
I'm so excited to try this.
but I know. I've been
Well, we've got some stuff in barrels that is going to be really great stuff.
Well, I think we're going to have to make a trip out there.
You definitely do.
I was going to drink some last night. I was like, I'm going to save everything I can not to taste anything until today.
Okay.
Like, I have a very clean palate and everything. And so,
There you go.
but, well, thanks for being here with us. We are super excited to have you on with us. And
It's great to be here.
we got some old whiskey barrels. We never thought we'd actually have a real distillery owner on the show with us. And so
Especially
we're super
in our backyard.
in our backyard. Yeah.
Well, we're trying to get the word out there, but it's funny you say that. And I'm kind of the guy that I started a distillery because I love bourbon. And I thought maybe I could be that guy that actually owns a distillery. So I did a lot of research, took me a couple of years, but and we made it come true. You know, I'm the guy, I know you guys are in financial advising, but I'm the guy that doesn't want to die with a lot of money. I'd like to take my money and really make some great experiences along the way. And I think this is one that I didn't know if we could make it happen. I got my son involved, really wasn't too interested in distilling, but I kind of sold him on the idea, and we dove in, and we're trying to make it happen, to make a great bourbon in a great state that produces a lot of great grain. And we found some great water from Longford, Kansas that we actually proof all our spirits with. And I think that's a big secret to why ours, we feel, really has a good flavor, because it's really in the water, and it's naturally filtered sandstone water from Longford, Kansas. So
Really?
yeah, we're really excited about that. And it's been great. It's been great.
I'm going to change over here. That way I can get a better view of everybody. We haven't perfected yet how we sit. How about that? So,
You know, I've seen in those kits, I was in Topeka at there's some bar there. It's the T Stop or T that you can play digital golf in there.
Yeah.
And but they had some Knob Creek that was specifically barreled for them.
Mm-hmm.
And they got a barrel pick, and it came in this nice wood case, and you opened it up. But one of the things that was in there was Kentucky spring water, and they had this whole little booklet that talked all about the water. So you know that's interesting, things that I wouldn't think about.
Yeah. So when we got this going, I mean, I knew, being in Kansas, I mean, you can't find better grain than in Kansas, but you got to have the water. The water is really the key ingredient. You think about a bottle like 80 proof vodka or 90 proof. In a 80 proof vodka, 60% of that bottle is water.
Wow.
Now, when you're looking at your bourbons that are 90 proof, 55% of that bottle is water. So it's your number one ingredient. So that's the first thing you got to really think about. If you want to make a spirit that has a lot of good flavor, you got to have a water that has a lot of good flavor. And then take it from there.
It's funny you mentioned that, because we had an older gentleman on here a couple weeks back, and he said that growing up in Alabama, he used to help his grandpa make moonshine, and he said it's all about the water. And it's just kind of funny hearing that again. So, well, go ahead and introduce yourself, sir.
Okay. My name's Stan Von Strohe. I'm from Marquette, Kansas now. And we own Smoky Valley Distillery, my son, my wife, and I. Small little town of 600 people, but it's a great place to live, a great place to raise kids. It's just a great community. And we thought we'd jump in and see if we could make a great bourbon in the state of Kansas. And I think we're on our way to doing that.
But you're not from Kansas, are you?
No, but I've always loved Kansas. I grew up in Denver.
Okay.
Went to Denver East. I graduated from college over in Grand Junction, Colorado. Small school. It's called Colorado Mesa University now. Graduated college, my wife and I. My wife's from the Vail area, Eagle, Colorado. And when we graduated, there really weren't many jobs in the state of Colorado. So my parents had moved to Dallas. So we thought, well, we're going to move to Dallas, see if we can get a job. Got a job in 3 days, and lived in Texas most of my adult life and raised my 3 kids there. So I've always lived in a big city, but I've kept the relationships. The biggest key to Marquette was when I was a kid, I had a great aunt that lived in Marquette. So every summer, when I was in high school, I would come to Marquette and I would work on all the farms. I just love being in the country, number one. Number two, I love being on a farm. So that was what I would do every summer. And I just got to know a lot of people. I always loved the area. So as I grew throughout my life, I always lived in big cities, but every chance that I had, I would get back to Marquette. Now, I do a lot of hunting and fishing, so that's another reason why I come up here. But it's just the pace of life in a small community like that is just, I love it. You know, people take the time to say hello, visit with you. I mean, it's just the lifestyle, I think, is what I really like about it.
I agree. I'd say, and you mentioned incredible grain here in Kansas. I mean, heartland of the world with that, and it's the big question I have, and we can go into that after we start talking about what you have here with us, and we can sample it. Is how the heck do you start and make a distillery? How do you where do you even begin with that?
Okay, before we go there, I want to know, and I don't think you said this, but in your career, what did you do up to that point?
Yeah.
I'd like to know.
There you go.
Yeah,
It's getting deeper here. Yeah.
So what I love is we talk about in retirement planning is like retirement's kind of a weird concept because it's like I've had clients, sadly, some people have left their career thinking that it's time to stop working, but in the sense of their purpose, it kind of
they don't have anything.
And it seems like their health deteriorates, but then you're telling me I just love bourbon, so I've got this passion, and I want to do this into the years that I have forward. But what did you do to make money? What was your career prior to getting to do this passion? Maybe you had a different passion.
Well, my brother and I owned a medical company for over 30 years in the Dallas area. We covered really all over the United States, and then probably the biggest blessing I ever had in my life is we sold our business the summer before COVID.
Oh.
What a blessing that was.
Yeah.
Because when I say medical, we were in the rehab side of medical, which means all the elective surgeries that got canceled, all the rehab that goes behind those, all that equipment, that's what we sold. So we got out just at the right time.
Wow.
And so that was a real blessing. I mean, you know, timing is everything, and that was, if I had to put something real important in my life, the timing of that was crucial.
That the reason that was there a catalyst for you to sell, to see that as the time for you to?
Yeah, my brother and I were, we've been doing it for so long. And so we just put some feelers out, and one thing you guys, I don't know if you've ever been around the sale of a small company, but it's not easy. Just going back and it took us a year and a half to get it sold. But we got it sold, and then kind of like what you were just talking about, I'm not the type of guy that's going to go sit around, play golf 5 times a week. I'm just not that guy. I still have to have something to do. So I sold my wife on. Well, we moved to Marquette, which she wasn't opposed to that, but actually growing and building another business, especially in the spirits that I had really no experience.
Sure.
But to me, that was the most exciting thing about it.
But you had a conviction from your memory as a youthful person coming over to Marquette, Kansas, and probably talking with farmers as you were working with the land and recognizing not just the environment, but like this would be great to extract this out of the ground and make great bourbon. So what's your wife's name?
Michele.
Michele. Okay.
And Shane is my son. So, I dove in, and, we haven't looked back because I always look forward. I try not to look back. Have we made mistakes? Yeah, I knew that going into it. I mean, this is something really new to all of us.
So you started it, and then in 2020, right? During COVID?
Right. We started, actually, my corporate papers were like in 18, but I really didn't get it going. Sold the business in summer of 19, and then 2020 is really when we started. June of 2020 is really when we opened the doors to have a tasting room and do all that stuff.
But the fact that we're sitting here and we've got your finished product in such a short amount of time that's awesome.
That is,
and
yeah.
I've seen my experience so far has been Sam Finch telling us the first time he tried your bourbon, he's like, "Oh, this is good. I'm gonna need some of that."
Well, I've had multiple people tell me too about the Plum vodka, and I was
Right.
like, I have never heard. Like, no, it's incredible.
And I've seen it when I've been in Lindsberg. I've seen it at the Crown and Rye up on the shelf, and I've seen it at Farley's.
Farley's. They both do a real good job of supporting us. So and the flavors we chose, we always try and keep it something, to this area. I don't want to make a peach. I'm not into making a peach vodka. But number one, I'm not into, we make vodkas, but that's not my love. My love is to really come up with some really, really unique bourbons. And I think if we're going to talk about bourbons real quick, we actually make a bourbon. It's in the barrel now out of a grain called Kernza. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Okay, the Kansas Land Institute here in Salina developed a perennial wheat,
Right.
which is really a cross between a native grass and a traditional wheat. And the advantage of that is it's perennial. So what you do is you plant it, and all you do is harvest it every year. It's got really deep roots, so it doesn't need a lot of water. So the way it works in Kansas is the people that have it planted now, they'll grow it all summer. In the end of July, they'll harvest it, and then they run their cattle on it all winter, take the cattle off in the spring, and then they'll let it grow again, and then they'll harvest it again next year.
What is it called?
It's called Kernza.
Kernza.
Yeah. So we are the only ones that I know of currently that have a bourbon or whiskey out of Kernza. So I really love that idea that it is something that was developed and is growing in Kansas. In fact, 2 weeks ago, I planted on some of my property, I planted 20 acres of Kernza. So I'll be able to take that Kernza that I'm growing, and we can use that for our product.
Now, do you get that from the Land Institute? Is that or
there are people farmers that they actually have the rights to grow it.
Okay.
As sustain a grain out of Mound Ridge. That's where we get all our product from. So
because Land Institute is world famous.
Oh my gosh!
There's a book I read years ago by Joel Salatin, farmer down in I don't know if that's West Virginia, but he's he was in a lot of documentaries. But in one of his books, he's friends with is that Wes Jackson, and he just talks all about Kansas, and it's like, and he mentioned Salina, Kansas in the book as I'm listening to the audiobook, but it's, to have that connection. All of these Kansas
people really don't realize how big that institute is and what their reach is. I mean, they're in third world countries growing this Kernza, and it's a great product for some of these countries that don't have a lot of machinery, don't have a lot of resources. And this Kernza is really a sustainable grain that they can keep going, and they can graze their cattle in the winter, and they can have something to harvest in the spring. I mean, in the fall. Yeah, it is. It really is a great product. So we're making a bourbon out of that. We're actually experimenting. We get a red corn out of Hutch. We've got some that we've tried with some blue corn. There's a wheat called Turkey red wheat, which is the original wheat that came to Kansas from Russia. And the Mennonites brought it over. So we're not into volume because our place, it's a unique situation when you start a company. Most people start a company and their whole idea is to build it, sell it, and make a bunch of money.
Sure.
Ours is all about quality, trying to create some really super unique.
It goes back to your starting point, which is the intention of your passion.
Yep.
Exactly.
Right? Which is that.
And
that
grounding
makes it so much fun.
in the roots of Kansas. I mean, the product you are enjoying and experiencing, especially if you're in this area, the Marquette, Lingenberry, Salina, McPherson area, and you're like, I am drinking this, and this is rooted in the history of the ground we're actually standing on. Yes. And a lot of our generations too, a lot of our ancestors who came here, like I said, they brought the wheat over here. A lot of people here still our third, fourth, fifth generations that can experience this, and it's generational, even though it's a new product kind of thing.
Right. And the more local we can make our products, the better it is. The better the story. And, everything we do is about quality. So if we have to make decisions about our product, we're always thinking, if it's a decision between quantity or quality, we always go for the quality. Even though, and I'll give you a good example, like if you're making a bourbon, the rule is, one of the rules for bourbon, it's got to go in the barrel at less than 125 proof. Well, we go in the barrel at 115 proof. And there are other bourbons that do that. But by doing that, what that does, it gives you a better quality product. The negative to that is you don't get as many bottles per barrel, but the bottles you do get are going to be smoother because you're going in the barrel at the lesser proof. So that's one of the decisions we had to make. What?
Is it appropriate to say less harsh then? I mean,
it's got less of a bite to it. It's smoother.
But see, I love that
Yeah.
because that's a story that people who like good bourbon are going to appreciate, and because you're not out of necessity having to produce something that's just like based off of a need for that dollar. You know,
Right.
that's. I can't wait to try this.
We
need to pour some of this up.
So we've got two bourbons. Now, I got it. The bourbon that you're going to try today is not 100% made in Kansas.
Okay.
Is that just because you haven't had the full 2 years yet? Or,
Exactly. Now, one of the other things that we do is, and I was talking earlier about, we use 30-gallon barrels versus the traditional 53. Here again, the reason we do that is the smaller the barrel, the quicker that the alcohol will age in the barrel. Okay? So all our what we call Bud and Deweys. Now, here's another thing. Bud and Deweys is our premium bourbon that will be out within 4 to 5 months. It's in 30-gallon barrels.
What's it called?
Bud and Deweys. Now,
Okay.
here's the story. you got to always have that
If there's
story.
a grand opening for this, please invite us. We want to be there when you guys have
you
that.
guys need to come out. You need to come out. So, Bud was my grandfather.
Okay.
Dewey was a barber in town, and they were the two craziest old guys you've ever seen. But you know what? They always had fun. Always had fun. So when I would come up, I had 3 brothers. So when we would come up, Dewey had a 1960 convertible Cadillac, and we'd all jump in the back seat of that Cadillac, and Bud and Dewey would be up front, and they would smoke cigars, drink whiskey, and we would cruise up and down Main Street. So the front of the bottle of Bud and Dewey's is a picture of the front of the
Cadillac.
The Cadillac is parked out in front of the barber shop.
It's a barber shop in there. That is,
So that'll be Bud and Dewey's in honor of those two that really, I mean, you talk about somebody who really enjoyed their whiskey. It was these two guys, and I'll never forget that. They're like a legend around Marquette, those two. So it's a lot of fun to be able to give them a little perk for all what they did for Marquette.
So 3 to 4 months would be a good 2023 beginning thing we'll have to look forward to.
Yeah, it is.
That's awesome.
So that's another. Now, right now, probably the hottest thing we have going is I'm not a huge vodka guy, but when you start a distillery, you need to have products to sell. So that's why you dive into the vodka business, because there is no aging involved. So
how long does that take then to make a vodka?
I can make one in 7 days. It's
Really?
Not,
okay.
Yeah, it's not hard to make a vodka. Vodka is basically ethanol. So that's what the ethanol plants do every day. They're making vodka.
See, I always wondered, and this is going to reveal my ignorance, but during COVID, when all of the distilleries just started making hand sanitizer, it was like overnight they switched into making. It was literally next day they've got.
Yeah.
Is that
very
because
easy
it's not
to do?
It's not just vodka, but it's some type of what is mixed with it to give it a consistency for.
It's some kind of. We kind of looked into
gelatin
it.
Or
yeah,
something?
it's like a gelatin that you put it in there, and it's got to be at least 60 proof to call it a hand sanitizer. So you're basically going to make a vodka, and you're going to put it with your we kind of looked into it, but here's the reason we didn't do it. We were just starting a business, right? And I had to focus on what I was trying to focus on exactly what we're trying to do.
The
And now,
details of what you're
now
building.
my business plan goes a complete other direction. I'm making hand sanitizer.
And back
I'm
in the
like,
medical community.
really? And I was like, oh my God, I got to focus on what I'm doing here. I mean, I know it now. If if we had to do it again, now that we know what we're doing, we got our roots into what our main products, we probably could do something like that. But at the time, the timing just was not good for us to do something like that.
That's so cool.
Let's try some samples.
We'll start with the bourbon. And this is our regular bourbon. The mash bill on this is 80% corn, 10% rye, 10% malted barley. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, you got a bunch.
I'll go for a run. I'll go for a run after this, so don't worry.
Yeah. The end of it might be more exciting to them than the start.
That's when we turn the camera off, and my wife will smack me. And so,
Oh man, that smells great.
that does smell really good.
So during our tasting, we always say take a little bit, rinse it around your mouth, swallow it. The second taste, really enjoy the flavor.
That's really good. Whoa.
So I was starting to talk about the vodkas, and this is really weird. Years and years ago, a buddy of mine.
Is that one right there?
This is the one we're tasting right there. Yeah. A buddy of mine, we were talking about vodkas, and he said, you know what? A smoked jalapeno vodka would be so good. And so we got to thinking about it, and I don't know if you guys have ever been to a bar where they actually flavor the glass. Have you ever seen it on the bar? They'll actually take a little bit of smoke and then they let they flavor the glass. Yeah. Well, we thought, why don't we just flavor the whole bottle? So with our smoked jalapeno vodka, we flavor the bottle and then we fill it with our jalapeno infused vodka.
How do you flavor the bottle?
You
The
take
same
a
way?
culinary smoker.
Okay.
We use hickory. We light it and we blow the smoke into the bottle.
And it stays.
Oh my gosh. It's amazing. You would think that glass being non-porous would not hold that flavor.
Yeah, almost like a film, right?
Yeah,
the Dockham, which is the speakeasy in the bottom of Ambassador Hotel in Wichita, which, by the way, they need your product in there.
Well, they all need it.
They did it with I don't know what kind of wood chips it was, but they have a torch. And they're just torching it, and it will make the whole glass have that film on it. And I've seen the Yaya's does the cherry tobacco where they light that, and that does a great job. So, but when I first saw that I'm like, will it really hold?
It really does. It's amazing, and not only does it hold after it's empty. If you wanted to try and reuse those bottles for something else, you really couldn't because you cannot get that smell out.
They've been baptized.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what's funny about it, too, I have some of our customers, they said, well, the only bad thing about it is it's got such an aroma to it. Then whenever they go get a drink, their wife's halfway across the house and she'll say, are you in the vodka again? Because she can smell that.
Like, you open up the chimney? What is that?
Smell that smoked jalapeno again.
I want to try. Yeah, I want to try that too.
Well, I'm going to give you some of that here in a little bit.
Okay. I like this.
So I'm leading into what I'm going to let you try next, and that is the smoked bourbon, because everybody says smoked bourbon. So it's really different in that we thought, well, we're just going to try it. We're going to smoke a bottle.
Same way that you do the
same way, and see what the difference is between the flavors of the two bourbons. So
same
this will
thing,
be
just that one smoked.
That one is smoked.
Interesting.
Yeah, it really, and it, believe it or not, makes a big difference.
You know what's great is we've we've been doing the podcast, but I feel like this one is extremely fitting for the whole theme of what we're.
When I walked in, I said, "You got barrels already. This is good." I thought you brought them in just for me. I didn't know.
He goes, you should have called me for the barrels. I said, I didn't know you guys were there to get the barrels from you.
That's it,
So
yeah. Sam did good.
Okay, I'm going to give you a glass. Pour what you have in that glass,
Okay.
and then I'm going to give you some smoked.
Oh, that's
Unless you want to just
smart. Nope. I want to do it out of the glass here, but that's smart because it's the same. Just
should we take a sip of that one again first to try to get them compared, or
if you want. If I had a little sip of water, I'd give you a little sip of water.
I'll grab some water real quick here.
here. Hey, there's some in your. The ice cube
there
is
you go.
melted.
Yeah,
That
I
way-
can get a bottle, but
There's one for you, Stan.
There we go. I think you could kind of rinse your palate that way, and now smell that one, and a little bit different flavor. I think it takes a little bit of the bite out of it a little bit.
I like that one.
So
I
good.
like that one a whole lot better.
Yeah,
I do. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really good.
very good.
You know what I think about?
Man, oh my gosh.
So I've got a friend that we try lots of samples of different whiskeys, and I was mentioning he's kind of the brain on and everything down to where and how, and so I've tried a lot, and I think my favorite default bourbon. I don't even know if it's bourbon because
We'll talk about that a little bit. I'll get you up to speed on that.
That's Knob Creek.
Yes, I love Knob Creek.
And I was Longhorn Steakhouse actually has a special bottled version, and maybe they just put a stamp on it. I don't know, but that was the first time I ever tasted it in an old fashioned. But then I was tasting it by itself, and where I'm going with that is that's like my favorite whiskey that I've ever tasted. But I got to tell you,
This is smooth.
I need a bottle of this because this is both of them, smoked or non-smoked. I think I genuinely mean that. Knob has been my go-to, and I've tried. You buy like Breckenridge whiskey, and it's good. And there's a lot of them that are good, but maybe it's just because all of the Kansas, all of our talk, and that I'm sitting here with a person that made this. That's
So that one you guys have coming out in 3 months. What's it called again?
Bud and Deweys.
Bud and Deweys. Are you
So-
going to do a smoked version of that too?
I never say never to anything.
Okay.
So it's not in the plans right now, but we've got right now in barrels. I've got, we talked about the Kernza, and that's a passion of mine. I just think it brings in the whole thing we're trying to do with Kansas. It is great. So I'm really excited about to get that going. In fact, I'm at the final level to get my labels approved. So we're going to get the labels printed, and away we go. So that'll happen pretty quick. But another really cool thing we do, you see these empty barrels. One of the rules with bourbon is you have to age it in a brand new white American oak barrel. Okay, so you can't use a barrel twice for bourbon, but you can use it for whiskey. So what we do is when we empty a 53, we actually fill it back up with a rye whiskey. Now, our rye whiskey is 85% rye and 15% corn. Okay. And then we're aging it for a couple of years in a used bourbon barrel. And to be honest with you, I'm not a huge rye drinker, but I'm becoming more of a rye drinker, and I think it's going to be a really, really good product, and we're excited about that too. And hopefully that'll be with that next year. What
do you think that is? Because to go back to my knob story, I've got a bottle of knob rye that it's not the same to me, but I'm trying to give it a chance, kind of thing. And so, but you're saying
it's
that
a
you're
whole
starting to
different flavor.
Yeah, you're starting to get into it.
Yeah, rye. Now, if you're an old fashioned drinker, a lot of people like their ryes with their old fashions. The reason is ryes have a real spice flavor.
Okay.
Which comes across to a lot of people is more bite, but it's really got that spicy flavor where when you're talking about bourbons. You're going to talk about more the caramel, the vanillas, the sweeter flavors.
Okay.
Like you taste these and you get a little bit of sweetness. You're not going to get that with your rye.
Okay.
But I think what this does, it takes that spicy, and now it's in a used bourbon barrel, and I think it may tone that down a little bit and bring it back in almost in between a rye and a regular bourbon. So, you know, we taste them as we go along, and so far so good. I think it's really, really going to be good. That's kind of what my son wanted to do, so we started doing that, and I think it's really going to be nice.
But that would make sense. If I'm following you, is that the rye in an old fashioned, because of the simple syrup and the cherry mash and the
Exactly.
it's covering the sweet aspect of it, so
Right,
that you
with you get the spice.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what everybody's looking for in an old fashioned.
You mentioned too, kind of backtrack a little bit for those who are listening who might not know the difference. You mentioned bourbon, you can't be it in the same barrel, but whiskey can. So kind of real quick,
Okay.
bourbon and whiskey difference.
So bourbon is a whiskey, but not all whiskeys are bourbons. Okay, so there's really 5 things that you have to do to call it a bourbon. Number 1, it's got to be made in the United States of America to call it a bourbon. That's our whiskey. That's America's whiskey. Just like Scotch is Scotland's whiskey. Just like Irish whiskey belongs to Ireland, has to be made in Ireland. Tequila's got to be made in Mexico. So this is our whiskey, America's whiskey. So it's got to be made in America. It's got to be at least 51% corn. It's got to be aged in a brand new American white oak barrel. It's got to come out of the still at less than 160 proof, and it's got to go in a barrel at less than 125 proof. If you do all that, call it bourbon. If you don't do all that, just call it whiskey. So
Are there pretty intense laws regulating that, and is there a lot of oversight on how you do that?
Well, yes, there are. So when you apply to get, whenever you apply to put a label on a bottle, part of the approval process is formulas. So you have to give them your formula for what you're doing and what you're calling it. So yes, that is at the stage when they're going to say, if this is what you're making, you've followed all the stipulations there are to be able to label and call it whatever that is.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah. So there's a lot of whiskeys now. Our Kearns is just going to be called a whiskey, even though I'm following a lot of rules. I just don't want to be stuck to having to use 51% corn. Did I say 51% corn?
You did. Yep.
So I want it to be Kearns to be the main deal, and so that's what we're.
When you talk about the distinction between bourbon and whiskey, is that an etiquette that's followed, or is that?
No, that's a law.
That is a law.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what if you proclaim that I have this bourbon here and it's not actually bourbon? I mean, is that a pretty big infraction then?
Well, you can say whatever you want, but the minute you put it in writing, stick it on the label on a bottle, if it says bourbon whiskey, it better be a bourbon. Okay, now here's another thing. If you'll notice on our bottles, it says, because a lot of people tell me it's got to be at least 2 years old. Well, the way you signify a 2-year-old, at least a 2-year-old bourbon, that's not one of the main rules. But most bourbons, if they're any good, are over 2 years. So if you put the word straight, see that says straight bourbon whiskey,
Right.
that means it's been in a barrel at least 2 years.
Okay.
Okay, so when you go out and you buy whatever it may be, it's going to say one of two things if it's over 2 years. They're either going to say straight bourbon whiskey, or they're going to have an age statement with it. So they'll say bourbon whiskey 4-year-old, bourbon whiskey 10-year-old. So as long as they have an age statement with it, if not, then they're going to probably put straight on it, because straight will tell you as a consumer it's been in a barrel at least 2 years.
Interesting. Okay.
So
Okay. Well, I agree with Josh that I love smoky flavored stuff, and
It's just cool to
that is awesome.
to sit
Very
I think,
good.
with someone who created the
This is your craft.
something
Like this-
that tastes that's legitimately the real thing that tastes this good, and to sit with, that's pretty cool.
yeah, you know the way I look at it is like you guys tell me you guys like to have bourbon, and I feel like one of you guys. And I tell people all the time, I go, we did it because we love it. We probably didn't listen to our financial advisor and do the right thing with our money.
But money doesn't always bring joy.
Exactly.
It's you got to find that passion.
But I tell people when we go downstairs and I've got all these barrels filled with whiskey, the one thing about when you have a distillery, you got to remember, you don't really make money till 3 to 5 years before you'll ever really see a return on that investment. So instead of taking my money and putting it in the stock market or bonds or whatever you're doing with it, I'm making whiskey and I'm putting it in barrels. So when they go in my basement, I go, this is where my savings account is, right over here.
And you're not stressed about what the market's doing. You're like, I don't care. I'm just watching my whiskey
and if you
barrel
get stressed,
right
you
here.
just go
drink some more
tap
whiskey
into
or
your
bourbon.
savings.
So here's why a distillery is a great place, because when things are tough,
it's
they
a
drink.
defense.
If when they're happy, they celebrate. So I've
that's
got
right.
it on both ends.
You got it on both ends. Yeah. And to go to that thought process, though, I think in economics, we use that term utility, which is each person derives utility from different things, and the fact that there's a complexity there, right? Because you did make good financial decisions in the sense of course, there's risk involved and unknown timing, but you sold the business when you sold it, and so I think you made a wise financial decision.
You know what? It's just
You're just selfishly saying that to get more whiskey or more.
right.
So as we built that medical company, I mean, there is that's why I have such respect for small businesses, because we grew it to a point where every time we had to pay payroll, I'm thinking, we got to pay this again next month. This is a lot of money. I'm like, oh my God, and the minute you start focusing on that, you don't do it. That's why I always say, well, I live for tomorrow because I can't do anything about yesterday. So, there's a lot of things we've done here that I've questioned, and you start doubting yourself and you go, you know what? You can't look backwards. You got to look forward. And my wife, she was a teacher. She was a pre-K teacher. And one of her principals gave her a book, and it was called Mindset.
Yep.
And I still remember that book. And it's just, if you have the right mindset.
And if you apply that mindset to what we always call it as your why, and we got that from our firm that we're with now, RFG, is really identifying what is your why, what is your purpose, and applying that full mindset, which is 2 words, mind, set. So putting your mind in the right position to go forward that why. Right. And once you do that, again, money, it's nice to have to help fulfill that or help fund it, but that's not the all being.
Oh, I agree. And I know some people that they spend their whole life collecting this big pile of money.
And they watch it.
And I'm not saying that's not a good thing. You can't get through life if you don't do some of that. But if you die with a bunch of money, I mean, what good is that? You got to, and that's one of the driving factors why I did it. There's a million things I could have done, and my wife was probably thinking, well, we could have gone that direction, but it's just something I really wanted to do. And Marquette was a place I wanted to be, and I really didn't want to quit working. I'll be 65 in May, and I'm not even 65. So I want to keep working. I want to have a reason to get up in the morning. And I'm not saying, what we've done has been great. I'm really proud of, especially my son diving in to be a distiller. We're learning something new every day. And that's one of the things we talked about in Open Mindset. When you quit learning, you really quit growing. And when you dive into an industry, I knew a lot about medical because I'd done it for well over 30 years. But now I dive into something it took me a while to really get going but it was exciting to be able to get up every morning and learn something new every day.
How old is your son?
27.
27.
Yeah.
Just
had his first kid. So
What a cool bonding time though for you guys too.
Yeah.
And a good,
you guys get to share
that's
that journey.
super awesome.
Yeah. And my deal, I just, as we grow this thing, I hope he loves it as much as I do. Because, it's really great to take a small town and give that. So many of them come up to me and they say they're in Wichita and they go to the liquor store and they see a product made in Marquette, Kansas. And it makes me feel good that they feel good that there's a product that they can say, hey, that comes from where I live, you know. So that's
And it's
really
good.
cool. Well, thank you. Thank you.
You know, it's like, well, you said your son just had a little boy, little girl?
Little boy.
Little boy. So
Yep.
you might have generations of
there we go.
Smoky Valley Distillery.
Exactly.
That's pretty.
And I would love that. I would love that we could get it going. And one of the other real benefits to these small communities, and I don't know why more businesses don't do it, but the cost of doing business in a little tiny town like that is so different than doing it in downtown Dallas, Kansas City, or Denver. I mean, the real estate, everything about it is just so much easier to run a business than in the big cities. So it's a great place to raise your kids.
Does Marquette still give free land
Yep.
for those that would move there?
They do, and they still have lots available. I'm like, okay.
All right, we got to get a
Okay.
Billings Group thing down in Marquette, Nate.
We need to get a Billings Group bourbon. BGB. I can already see it. Crush everything bourbon.
Mindset.
Real quick, I'm going to talk about a couple of our other vodkas. So we came out with some really unique flavors for this area. Number one was Wild Plum, the state fruit of Kansas, which has been real popular. Then we have, you guys know what Lingenberry is?
Oh, yes.
Lingenberry.
You know, what is a Lingenberry?
It's, well, it's a jam that I've tasted in Lindsberg. That's all I know.
So you know it has to be sweet.
I don't know what it is, but I ate it.
Should I grab some more water?
You want to grab a bottle of water for
I'll
each of
grab
us? Thanks, Nate.
So Lingenberry is a Swedish cranberry.
Okay.
And being from an area that is basically all Swedes, even Marquette, that all Swedish people. So what we did when we designed this bottle, you know what this is on the back?
The Dala
horse.
Dala horse.
So I figured if I was going to market to Swedes, once I put that Dala horse on it, I just fill these with water. They don't even know the difference. No, I'm just kidding.
That's awesome.
No, our Lingenberry.
We'll edit that out. No, that's so smart. Yeah.
No, but being in the Swedish area, they love the Lingenberry flavor. So
doesn't it have kind of a spice to it in my memory?
It's not as sweet as the Wild Plum. It's got a little bit of a different flavor, but it's still kind of sweet if you ask me. Here.
Do we want to do that in a separate thing?
Separate thing.
Thank you.
You know, there's so many things we could talk about, things that we've learned along the way, but labels are, as you know, when in spirits are so important. So one thing I want you to look at on this Lingenberry bottle, this Lingenberry label is actually silk screened right to the glass. Where
wow.
every other label you see up here is
Like a
actually
sticker.
Yeah. So this is a Wild Plum, and you can look at that. So that's a clear label that's stuck on there. This one.
No.
Whoa.
So now here's a big deal when you have a distillery. So one of the problems we ran into, we really think these labels are really cool. The problem is they've really, whatever you make, if you're going to sell it in a liquor store, it better stand out, especially if you're making a vodka, because there's hundreds and hundreds of vodkas out there. So somebody walking down the aisle of the vodkas, how are they going to pick your vodka out over somebody else's vodka? So our smoked jalapeno used to have this same style. So it's a clear label with a clear liquid. So what we did, we just redid the bottle. So, and really what we tried to do is we used a lot of foils, just like you see in the bourbons, to get those things to stand out when they're sitting on the shelf.
Well, I know we haven't talked about it yet, but I love the logo on all the bottles too.
Thank you.
I love the buck with the little cabin back there and everything.
So that's actually our house. That's part of our house.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So if you ever go out by Kanopolis,
so
we
cool.
have that house was built back, and we think around the mid 1850s.
An old stone home.
It's an old stone home. Now we tied onto it. We built a replica. We bought a replica old barn and put it out in front of it, so it's tied onto that building. But if you like history, especially a history of the area, I mean, you look at that house, and every rock was chiseled to be in that place, and you can see the marks where somebody would actually chisel it away. And I wish that house could tell stories.
Is it the limestone?
Sandstone.
I'm sorry, it's sandstone. Okay,
yeah. So the story of that house is that we're right by Kanopolis Reservoir. Or Kanopolis, what was it, Fort Hawker that used to be in Kanopolis, a big fort. So people coming across the prairie in the wagon trains used to stop there and resupply all their goods so they could make it out west. So what this guy would do, this is a story some of the old timers gave me, that the guy that owned this property, he would take all his goods up to the fort and he would sell all the goods to the people in the wagon trains, and he'd bring a load of rocks back every time he went up to the fort. And that's what he built that house out of, which is really, it's really cool. Every time I would stay in there, I just like the stories and who's been in here. It's amazing to go through the history of all that.
Well, that is really, and again, the fact that you put it right there, and it has that old school, and a very Kansas-y look too. Yeah,
that's what I thought, because we're big deer hunters too. So
there you go, even better.
It's funny that I had a company out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, help me with the labels. And they sent it over, and they had that buck on there, and they had like a little 2-pointer on there. And I go,
no,
maybe in Louisiana you'd get away with that, but not in Kansas. So my son said, we went out.
People will reject it just from that.
Yeah. Well, number one, he looked at it, and he's like, being a deer hunter, he's like, I don't think that's going to work.
What the heck is that?
Yeah.
Can we try some of the plum too?
You can. You can try whatever you want.
And I'm going to try the jalapeno. I've never thought about smoked jalapeno vodka.
Do you like Bloody Marys?
No, but
do you like Mules?
Kind of.
That's our two biggest things. Number one, we serve Bloody Marys in our tasting room, and
I like that plum.
Yep.
And we serve hundreds and hundreds of Bloody Marys. We make a really good Bloody Mary. And
I would come try one from you, because the only one I've ever had in my memory was not a good experience. So I would give that a second shot.
Oh my! Whoa! that is
incredible.
Holy cow!
So when we make drinks with this, and we have our little shot glass, I can use that. I have one just for the smoked jalapeno because of the flavor.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
That makes me want to eat tacos or something. I don't know.
Or brisket or something. Here we go. So we, gosh, I gave you away. Whatever I give you, you don't have to drink.
He's giving Nate all the.
I don't know why I'm so heavy-handed when I give him one.
Well,
man, that
Stan, we'll just have to have you back
unique.
Regularly.
Yeah.
As you come up with new things.
Yeah, when you guys get this thing perfected, you can go on the road. Come over to the distillery.
Hey, we can.
This is very mobile. We could do one like in front of the barrels or something like that.
Yeah.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, we could do all that. Or we could do it right down by the still while he's making it. How's that?
Hey,
next year,
week.
we're doing it. What are you doing tomorrow?
Just give me a day. No, that's what Shane is doing today, my son. He's down there. He's got a mash going, and then he runs the still at the same time. So he's got a new one started, and he's finishing up one.
Are you guys writing the story of the distillery while you're doing it? I think you guys need to.
That's a good idea.
You need to write this stuff down. Even an ebook would be super cool for the website.
Yeah.
We kind of hit on that, but we got your backstory a little bit more. Talk about that. Talk about how the heck does that happen? How do you get a distillery going?
Even if you wanted to, you're like, I'm going to do this.
Well,
it sounds difficult.
Number one, I said before, don't listen to your financial advisor, because it's not. It's a risky proposition. You probably
edit that.
Yeah. Anyone listening, don't. No.
Unless you have a different financial.
And the
advisor.
other thing, don't listen to your psychiatrist, because he's telling you too. Are you crazy?
You want to stay married?
See, you got to sell your wife on it. And then I had to sell my son on it, and it just It's been a ride, and I feel like the ride is just starting.
Yeah.
You know, and I loved, and I do tours for people all the time, and I love guys like you guys that come in that really love bourbon and like to experience stuff like that. And I go, you know what do my wife and I do when we go on vacation? We go do the same thing. We go to every distillery, brewery, winery, and we listen to their story and get ideas. And I mean, we just love it. It fits our lifestyle. So, I mean, we just kind of pass on what we learn and what we see and try and incorporate it into our distillery.
Is it a pretty expensive endeavor to get it started, though,
and
find all the right equipment? And is it hard to even find the equipment to do it?
It is now. I can tell you right now. I would tell you that since we started, if you wanted to invest in everything that we have, you'd pay double what I paid.
Really?
Yeah. So I would say you'd have to have at least $250,000 to just for the basic equipment, what you need. Because we pretty much start from scratch. So we had you got a boiler, you got to have heat. So we have a steam boiler, low pressure steam boiler, and we pump the steam down to the mash tun where we cook it all. And then we have fermentation tanks where we let it ferment with the yeast, and then we pump it into our still. We have a 250-gallon pot still, and then run it through our still, and it ends up in what we call our spirit safe, is where the alcohol comes out. But we do also have what they call a column still or a deflagmator, and you'll notice the columns every time we can redistill the alcohol. So when you like your vodkas, if it'll say 6 times distilled, every time you redistill alcohol, what that does is basically take the impurities out of the alcohol. Okay, so the water basically, so it's making it a higher proof alcohol. So you can run the deflagmator, or you just run it straight through the still, depending on what you're making.
So when you started out, did you already have distributors or different companies? No. I mean, so how do you go about that? Did you just start?
Did you even know how?
I didn't. I knew nothing. I'll tell you what. Learning here again. We talked about learning, being willing to learn and start over and understand what you don't know. So what we did is I went to some ADI conferences. American Distilling Institute has a big conference every year, and it's all craft distillers. So first one I went to was in Denver, and I just went, and the company, I bought my equipment from American Beer Equipment up in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I got to know one of their salesmen. And I said, if I come up there, can you get me in the show, and can I go to the exhibit hall? Can I go to some of the classes to kind of give me an idea of really what I'm getting into? And that conference was so informative. I spent 2 days.
That from a personal standpoint? Because once you committed, you committed, right? So was that intimidating? Like when you're like, but you seem like a learner and a go-getter. Sorry, I keep cutting you off.
No, and I understand what you're saying, because you know what, you dive in so far, and now you got to write the check for all this equipment.
Yep.
And then you got to deliver it, and you got to install it.
There's no turning back.
There is no turning back. That's why you can never look backwards, because if you did, oh my God, you just you'd question everything you're doing. You just got to keep it going forward. And like I said, I try and look at what I got coming up in front of me, and if there's some things we got to change, we change them. It's. And I think, having my own medical business for a lot of years, I think a lot of times when you're writing those big checks, it's not easy, and we used to do a lot of big deals and stuff. So, you get used to looking at money a little bit differently. And I just looked at it as a big investment, and really not my future, but also my son's future, and really more for him. I enjoy doing it, but really the fruits of what we're doing now, in 5 to 10 years, that's when all those barrels are going to be ready. And all those are 100% paid for. All you have to do is bottle those, and away you go.
It's going to be so much fun, hopefully a decade from now.
Having you back on here.
Yep. And then when we're sitting there, and probably with your son, and
exactly. Maybe my grandson.
And that's what I was going to say.
There you go.
Yeah. That's,
but that is, like you said, that is a really cool. You talk about legacy too, and like.
Yeah, no doubt.
This is a very patient game. It's not you don't get reward right away.
Let me tell you, if you're impatient, open a brewery. if you got the patience. But not only that, I think from a capital standpoint, when you're looking at a distillery, you know, all these years we're waiting for this whiskey to age.
Right.
You still have you have a cash flow issue because every penny you're making, you're still buying barrels. You're buying everything. You're paying for the gas to heat that mash tun every day. You still have employees you're paying. So, yeah, you want to sell a lot of vodkas. We have the tasting room. We sell drinks. But it takes a lot more than that.
It's really, you're planting seeds for that harvest that's down the road,
Yeah.
the dividends that are going to be paid.
Right.
So, see, you're doing financial planning.
Exactly.
You're just doing it a fun way.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So how do you get in stores and liquor stores? You
Well,
just go there in person and say, hey,
No.
here's my product.
No.
Do you mind if I have some more of that smoked?
Yep, you can have some. In Kansas, now, the ideal situation, you want some more?
I got to take a break.
Okay.
I'm not as strong tolerance, I don't think, as you guys.
The
or Josh.
ideal situation for
I don't
a
drink.
craft distillery would to be able to sell my products anywhere in the country. Go direct, mail order, whatever, just sell it directly. That's not how you do alcohol. Spirits have to go through distributors. So in Kansas, I have to sell. Now, anything I make, I can sell at my micro distillery in the gift shop. That's it. Any other sales I make have to go through a distributor. I sell it to my distributor, which is Speakeasy Distribution in Wichita. And then they sell it to the liquor stores, and the liquor stores sell it to the restaurants. That's the way it works in Kansas. That's a chain that you have to follow. Now, in the future, 10 other states have adopted direct-to-consumer sales. So in a craft distillery situation like I have, it would be nice to – I get a lot of people from all over the country that come in our place, and they say, can I buy your stuff? Yeah, while you're here, but I can't ship it to them.
You can't ship it.
I can't sell it to them. They have to go to a liquor store, buy it. Or they could buy it from me right then and there, but that's it. Once they go home, unless they're a liquor store, and we only distribute in Kansas right now. Here's another thing. I mean, I'd love to distribute in a lot of different states. Here again, this is kind of my retirement job. It takes a lot to support one state, all their liquor stores, all their restaurants. So we really want to go to Missouri, but until we get Kansas down and get the liquor stores, and we're doing a great job. I think where we're at in the growth of this company is great, but we got to be patient and let it kind of grow. And then when we get to a certain point, we'll probably go to Missouri next. I'd like to go to Texas. I'd like to go to Arkansas. You know why? That's where my other kids live. So I got an excuse to go there, visit my other grandkids.
You know, it's my brother lives in Arkansas.
Where at?
It's near Rogers.
That's where my daughter lives.
Elm Springs, maybe is. I don't know if that's the right.
No, Eureka Springs.
Well, it's by Rogers and Bentonville, that whole area.
Yeah.
And last Thanksgiving we went to Fox Trail Distillery.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It seems like they had just started not too long ago.
They have, but they got a lot more money than I do. That place is really awesome.
Did
you have a drink there?
Oh, I had the flight, and then I got a bottle of their Oak and Bean.
Yeah.
Which is just a fun drink.
Is that what you were talking about?
That's the one I'm going to bring.
Okay,
yeah. But what a neat facility. But again, it seems like because I think it's called their Parallel whiskey was only 2 years or 3 years.
Yeah, they're younger than we are.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting story.
Yeah, because I watched them build that thing, and I would go over there and I'd look at it, and I thought, looking at their operation and our operation, millions of dollars difference.
Sure.
It is incredible. That place it's beautiful.
It was a really cool experience, but in the sense of it sounds like they're going to be doing volume. Mm-hmm. That's kind of their goal.
So I know craft brewery is it's a huge thing. Is craft distillery taking off then?
It is, but like in the state of Kansas, I believe right now there's only 6 distilleries, and the reason being, the rules and the laws in Kansas are a lot stricter than other states like Missouri. So if you go, let's say Kansas City, most of your distilleries are on the Missouri side because it's easier the rules are a little bit more lenient when it comes to distilleries in Missouri than they are in Kansas. So,
Well, I know you've got to get going pretty soon here, but I got a quick question for you.
yep.
I'm not sure if this is true or not, but have you heard of the drink, the horse feather?
No.
Okay. Well, I read on
I'm
some.
sure I could make it, though.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I read on some online site, which is probably like Wikipedia. It's all truth, right? Is that there's a rumor or a urban legend that the horse feather is the original drink of Kansas, and what it is, I guess, it's like you mentioned the mule. You substitute that with a bourbon, so bourbon, ginger beer, and you put it in the actual glass and everything. And I guess somewhere down the road, someone said that was the original Kansas drink.
We actually make that drink. You know what they call it, though? A Kentucky Mule. But I'm going to rename it when I go back this weekend because I don't like the Kentucky Mule. Like we use our smoked jalapeno and we make a mule and we call it the Smoky Valley Mule.
Okay.
So now we've got a new drink for this weekend.
Well,
I'm going to look it up. We'll see. But that's a Kentucky Mule, it sounds like.
the website I probably saw it on is probably not even open anymore. It's probably some random person who created it, but there you go.
I actually like that. In everything we do, you can tell I love stories. And to me, whether you put a picture on the wall or you make a label, there's got to be a story behind it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it. It's not the label, it's a story that goes in.
Well, there you go. The random horse feather, Kentucky, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then
Here we go.
But it was the same
This
site.
is where it started
Yep.
today.
But it was the same site, too, that I read on there that ranch water was, and again, this is not true at all, but it said that it originated back in the 1800s when cowboys couldn't find clean water to drink.
Yeah.
So they made ranch water.
Yeah.
And I realized that drink wasn't made till like 1980s. I was like, no, that's completely false. So,
Yeah.
but there you go.
Well, good. Well,
And this has been awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for coming
Thank
on
you,
here.
Stan, for
and
sharing.
you bet.
bringing
And,
the drinks and everything.
Yeah.
And
Amazing.
I'm learning every day. And we're not experts, but we're trying to, my biggest deal with it is I want to bring it out to guys like you, our products. And if you like them, that's what makes me happy.
So how much does if we were to come by your gift shop?
$39.95 on bourbons, $24.95 on any of the vodkas.
Okay.
Okay. And in Salina, we have some great liquor stores. And you can get most of our products at the liquor stores here
Okay.
in Salina.
really? Okay.
Oh yeah, they do it. They do a really good job. They've been really supportive, pretty much all of them. And McPherson's the same way. Hutchinson, Hayes, Great Bend. We've got a lot of great liquor stores. And here again, I get to deal with small businesses. Yep. So I'll go out there and I do a lot of tastings. I was just in Abilene last week, and get to meet all the people that are using and trying our products.
Now you had mentioned, let's say you have a small restaurant and they wanna come buy your bourbon to serve in their restaurant. Do they? I mean, it's I guess the legality of that. Can they come and buy a bottle from you and serve that in their restaurant, or is that
No.
okay?
I have to say no because
It has to go through the distributor.
well, it's
right?
it has to go in any alcohol. Like you go in a restaurant, if they go in the restaurant, they got to be able to produce a receipt that they bought it from a distributor. It's like we actually for special events we'll actually carry some beer. Excuse me. So any beer we buy, I can't go to Walmart and buy it. I got to buy it from a distributor. And I have to keep that receipt on file. Oh. So you have to, even though I pay more through my distributor, you have to go through the chain of command when it comes to
so not only the learning of how to make great, bourbon whiskey, but also how to
distribute it. Yep.
get it to the hands of the people.
You can't even imagine the rules and the things we have to do every month. In fact, that's what I did this morning. I went through for October. Now, there are some great softwares out there. We carry we use a software called Hoochware, and it keeps track of every drop of alcohol we have in our place. And you could not run a distillery without that, because at any point in time, if the government wants to, they can come in and inventory every barrel, and every barrel has a placard on it telling you exactly when it was made, what's in the barrel, blah, blah, blah. And all that is on a computer system. And then anything, now when you have a distillery, you have to designate a bonded area. So we have a bonded area. Any alcohol in the bonded area, which would be down by the still in our warehouse, anything, as long as your alcohol stays in that bonded area, you don't have to pay an excise tax. The minute you take it out of the bonded area, you pay a 2.5% excise tax on it. So that's why they want to know where the alcohol is. The minute it, like if it goes from the warehouse to my gift shop, I'm paying a 2.5% excise tax on it.
Wow.
So
but
what?
You got to be able to do all that.
What days are you guys open for people to come and visit you guys? And
Well,
tour and...
we are open to the public Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Okay.
We do a lot of special events. We do parties. We got a bunch of Christmas parties. We actually do a lot of live events now, live music, really small venue. We only can, on a Thursday night, we have a group from Colorado coming in, some comedians, and we have 50 people, and that's our max.
Okay.
So we do things like that. You can find all that on our, mainly on our Facebook account would be the best way to do it, or on our Facebook page. I mean, on our website.
So those 3 days, people can walk in, buy products, watch
10
everything.
to 5. Yeah, 10 to 5.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
And you're downtown Marquette?
Downtown Marquette, and I'm sure you can find that.
We'll find you'll find it eventually in Marquette.
Hey,
so.
I want to put in a plug for Marquette. We have one of the greatest motorcycle museums anywhere in the country.
Yep.
And it is absolutely awesome. And I'll tell you, I'm not a huge motorcycle guy, but this place has a great story behind it. And it's got some unbelievable motorcycles in there. So you need to come do that. We got a real nice city sunrise where homemade ice cream. And then our grocery store, it's a neat little grocery store. Steve Piper, he does some unbelievable meats and sausages.
Ooh.
So it's really good stuff. So come to Marquette and see us.
Awesome.
That's
Again, we appreciate you coming on here. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
You bet.
It's been a
Thank
blast.
you.
Yeah.
Yep. Thanks, Dan.
You bet.
Man. Content here is for illustrative and educational purposes only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice. Nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security or engage in any specific trading strategy. Results will vary. Market conditions change continuously. Past performance is no guarantee of future results or success. All investing involves risk, including loss of principal. Securities offered by registered representatives through Private Client Services, member FINRA SIPC. Advisory products and services offered by investment advisory representatives through RFG Advisory, a registered investment advisor. RFG Advisory, Billings Group, and Private Client Services are unaffiliated entities.